Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We'll get started in just about a minute here. Want to thank everyone for joining today. Thank you guys all for your time. Just a few housekeeping items before we kick off as well. This webinar is being recorded. Will be sent to each of you after the call. We do have a live chat here. You're welcome to use and ask any questions you have. At the end of the discussion today, we will move into a Q&A period to get any of your questions answered. So yeah, we're really excited for today's discussion. We have three amazing MSP leaders joining us to discuss AI within the MSP, focusing today specifically on how MSPs are leveraging agentic AI to improve profitability for the MSPs by becoming more operationally efficient, delivering a better customer experience. As we all know, this MSP space is incredibly competitive. So any opportunity for AI to drive efficiencies, provide competitive differentiation is of extreme importance to staying relevant in the market. Before we introduce our speakers, for those of you who are not familiar with BigPanda, we are an agentic IT operations platform. We work with MSPs specifically, help them automate their incident detection, reduce the total number of tickets they have to manage for their customers, allow them to scale through technology rather than having to scale through headcount. And then ultimately with the goal of finding root cause faster for their customers to give their customers the best experience possible. Love to introduce our speakers for today. We have leaders from Verinext, Mission Cloud, and Dataprise. I'm going to leave the honor of allowing them to introduce themselves individually. Get my slides up here. Fantastic. Mike, I will let you introduce yourself first.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch. Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Carroll. I'm the Senior Director of Infrastructure Management for Dataprise. A very fancy title. Basically just means I oversee our Network Operations Center, remote monitoring and management teams, and our cloud services operations. I've been in the MSP space for going on 15 years now, and the majority of that with Dataprise going on about 13 years here. I like to joke around that, I've kind of held every engineering role in the company before getting to this point. I started out as a field engineer, going out to our customer sites, doing kind of white glove desktop support and kind of server management and administration. And I've held project engineering roles, senior escalation engineer roles. So, just have a really big focus on both, the customer experience that we're delivering, but also, the engineer experience, making sure that we're giving them, the tools and processes to be successful in this space.
Thank you, Mike. Jason, I'll hand it off to you.
Hey folks, welcome aboard. Jason Gay, I am the Director of Cloud Operations at Mission. We are a CDW subsidiary. Been with the company for about 11 years now and in the MSP space since the very early 2000s, way back when Windows NT4 was a thing. Right now, my role is to oversee our operations team. We provide monitoring and management support services, resolution remediation services, cost optimization services, you name it. Run the gamut of all the fun stuff that AWS provides, and we work through all the 5 pillars of their well-architected framework. And happy to be here.
Thanks, Jason. Matt, we'll go to you last.
Hey, everyone. So Matt Bynum, Senior Vice President of Managed Services at Verinext. Verinext is a value-added reseller that also offers managed services and professional services for infrastructure. So very similar to Mike, I've had a lot of different roles. Started out my career very technical, got up to the CCIE level in the Cisco space, and then transitioned into more of business and got my MBA. What that transition gave me is the ability to translate the bits and the bytes, the speeds and the feeds to the dollars and cents. So that's been kind of my claim to fame in my role and what I do at Verinext.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you all. I'll get into our agenda today. So we'll talk through 3 main topics. Again, feel free to ask questions as we go through. We're happy to address anything specific that you would like to cover. But the first topic will be around AI and operational transformation. So how MSPs like Verinext, Mission Cloud, and Dataprise are leveraging AI in order to become more efficient and deliver a better customer experience. We'll then go into a little bit about kind of data management, reporting, improving customer value. The topic here being oftentimes when MSPs are performing really well, the customer things can tend to go quiet, and the customers can forget all the great work that you all are providing for them. So ways to get in front of that, ways to make sure that the customer is staying engaged and you're staying in front of them with all the value that you're delivering. And then finally, we'll let each of the leaders here talk a little bit about how they're leveraging Agentic ITOps, what their before state looked like before BigPanda, why they chose BigPanda, and what that evaluation process looked like, and then what future state looks like now that it's in place and delivering the outcomes that they set out to achieve. So that is where we're going to take the conversation today. I'll start with the first topic, the AI and operational transformation. Really, again, the focus here is around how the leading and best MSPs are treating operations in order to provide that solid customer experience and create efficiencies within their team so they can do more with less, which is ultimately the name of the game. Jason, I'll start with you just kind of foundationally. Can you talk a little bit about Mission Cloud's AI strategy, automation of your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, sure. So we started this, I would say maybe 2 years ago. We built our own internal chatbot, and that was our first step into the AI space within our cloud operations space, right? So we were looking at things like much of our team is offshore. English is not their first language. How do we help them to provide updates and provide notes to customers on support cases in a manner that actually sounds cohesive when it's not their first language, right? So how can we take their summaries and say, hey, make this a little bit cleaner? So there was a chatbot that we built for that internally. We did not want to use a public chatbot at that point in time. That's where we started. We've since moved on and started looking at, we've been working actually with BigPanda, but we've got some great things in place with this now that help us to automate ticket, I'm drawing a blank on the words right now, ticket consolidation, really, right? We compress the number of alerts that come in. We have tooling that looks at all of our alerting, correlates them together, brings it in. It takes a whole lot less human interaction to go through that stuff, which saves a significant amount of time. I mean, when we looked at this, I think at the end of the day, we were looking at, I want to say around roughly 20 hours of time saved per week, just in, ticket consolidation alone. So there's things like that. There have been things that we're working on building right now, which are looking at what are the steps that our team takes every time we get an alert. Do they have to go look at a monitoring tool and provide a summary to customers? We can have some of our tooling actually do that for us now and say, hey, let's go grab all of that data, pull it together so that we're not wasting time doing, I don't want to say meaningless tasks, but doing the busy work when somebody can have that information pulled together for them, and then they can go and analyze it once it's put in front of them. So lots of really cool stuff like that helps make things a little bit easier and make things run a lot smoother and more efficient with our time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, less tickets ideally means less people to be able to handle those. So any way to cut it down makes a massive impact. Mike, I'm curious your view on it from Dataprise. Is it a similar story? What impact has it had on your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely a similar story. I would say, we probably started more with, BigPanda a couple of years ago, helping us with that consolidation, correlation, and aggregation of, individual events and alerts into incidents, being able to see things on like a timeline view. I mean, ultimately, everything when we're talking about with automation is about like how do we drive time savings, right? So whether that's saving time in identifying the actual issue, the root cause, or saving time on okay, what is the what are the steps and actions I need to take to resolve this issue. So a lot of the tools that we've put in place over the last 2 years have been at trying to drive kind of both sides there, right? Reduce the signal to noise ratio because noise in the system is wasted time of engineers kind of chasing down rabbit holes that don't effectively address the customer's issue. And then once we do know what the issue was, okay, how can we get them the steps to follow in as little, panes of glass as possible? Like there's always kind of the nirvana of this single pane of glass, right? Like we're definitely not there yet, but all the tools that we've, brought on in the last, couple years, and especially some of the things that I'm really excited to roll out over the coming year here are really kind of trying to drive that and eliminate like the swivel chair, experience for the engineers that ultimately, not only does it impact the customer's experience in how long it takes you to solve something, but like I was saying earlier, it's also the engineer's experience, right? Like you get burnt out engineers when they're having to sift through, many different, portals and panes of glass to get to what they need to do to solve the issue.
I want to echo that, Mike. One of the things that I didn't think I covered, but you just triggered a thought in my head was it's not just the burnout for the engineers, it's burnout for the customers too, right? When you can consolidate the alerts and not generate as much noise for a customer, it's game changing. It's totally game changing, right? They'll actually start responding to you in a timely manner. So
there was so much busy work that we were creating just with duplicate alerts for the same thing, and like we're always getting on the engineers about their time entries, right? Because we're service provider, we need to have those billable hours entered, and when there's 10 tickets for something that they own, one issue, again, just it leads to burnout, right? Yep. So being able to reduce that has really had a positive impact for us.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And Matt, I'm curious. I mean, in your intro, you talked about how over your time within this MSP space, your focus has turned into, a lot of the high level metrics for the MSP, the profit and the loss. I envision Verinext has had probably similar outcomes to what Mike and Jason shared, but I'm curious your perspective on, the top line and the bottom line. How is this all impacting?
Yeah. So I want to be really clear here. And when we talk about AI, everybody is experiencing this, right? It's not like you can just very easily and quickly put together an ROI business case on AI because you don't go buy AI, right? It's something that's got to be woven in. These technologies are not overnight game changers, but they are game changers, and it's more evolution, not revolution. The biggest impact that we've seen really from the implementation of BigPanda and pursuing other automation is a change in the cost drivers, those things that make your costs go up as you add business, right? We typically would have that in the past, the very sharp and sudden step costs of, all right, I got a new customer, cool, there's top line, I love this is great. Oh wait, I got to add a headcount. And then that just rinse and repeat on the headcount. So that makes that cost growth very, very linear in relation to revenue growth. So with AI and automation in play, what changes is that cost driver is becoming more of a longer term fixed cost in the business, and you start to see the efficiencies of scale. And you have to, in my opinion, take that with a grain of salt, but you have to kind of get back to some managerial accounting basics around like activity-based costing. That's what, Jason, you were talking about understanding the time and what that takes with some of these things that you're able to eliminate that toil, that manual labor. Going back to activity-based costing and know where your costs are for the things that your engineers do and which engineers that your engineers do and how often you have to go to a senior versus a junior. That gives you the ability to go back and math that out in terms of calculating ROI. So you can go to the business and make the next ask later. So it's not super sexy stuff, but it's really important to understand just how that time relates to the dollars and cents.
No, it makes total sense. And one of the things I've worked with a ton of different MSPs, and the way it's often articulated to me is, we have a pretty static equation in terms of we add X amount of customers and therefore X amount of devices. We are going to take on X amount more tickets and need Y amount more people to support that. And if you can leverage AI and automation to change the number of people that are needed to handle X amount new customers, that's money in your pocket, right? That's typically the biggest line item on the balance sheet is the people in order to support the customer. So if you can start changing that math equation, it brings a lot of money back into the business. Matt, doubling off of that, I'm curious from a service offering perspective and competitive differentiation in the market. Can you talk a little bit about, we talked a lot about the operational efficiency side of things, but one of the things we hear from our customers is that in this competitive market, it's really important to show that you're of the latest and greatest, and you guys are going to provide the best customer experience because of the technology and the strategy that you do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll level with you all. We didn't traditionally charge enough for our services also. So we've had an opportunity here with introducing AI to really retool offerings with messaging around AI to really increase the price and give customers a better service. So, overall, right, that's a very huge collective win. And we're just like, oh, these are new SKUs with new offerings. We're weaving AI into every aspect of our go-to-market messaging. We've done a whole branding overhaul of the offering sets, reduced and simplified for the sellers, because you all know what that's like too. And we're calling out to customers the AI components that we're leveraging, how it benefits them, and really propping that up. And one of the approaches too that we're taking here is not just AI, but like we're kind of leveraging this with other tools as well. We're migrating to enterprise class tools, and that's the messaging to customers. Hey, we want to maximize our value that we're providing to you, and not doing it in a way and not doing it in a way that so AI in that context also helps us contain costs and manage our costs in a way that we're very competitive. There's a lot of value, and we're not more expensive than
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And one of the things that I've loved since BigPanda has put this really big focus on helping the MSP space is we have started to really lean in on helping our customers helping our customers with go-to-market with sales materials, so that, again, like something I had worked specifically on at one point, Jason, with your marketing team, is just how can we get this message out to the market and show that we have this latest and greatest technology, and are ultimately can use it as a differentiation when we're going to RFP, if we're going to in a head-to-head situation. So for those that are on the call that are customers of BigPanda, reach out to your account manager and account executive. It's absolutely something we're willing to lean in with you on. And for those of you that are just learning about BigPanda, it really is a true partnership, especially in this MSP space. So, we'd love to open up the conversations and show you kind of what we can do holistically outside of just technology.
I want to add on the subject of ROI. The BigPanda account team is really good at helping you frame the business case, and they were instrumental in our engagement. I mean, they've really got it dialed in. I use a lot of that material when I went to my CFO to justify the purchase.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can add on to the operational efficiency side of things as well, I know that was the thing that I think really helped us quite a bit was identifying repeat issues. Right, there's a thing about you get alerts every day. That's going to happen. It's going to be inevitable. But if you're the engineer that's sitting there taking those alerts, it's not quick and easy to find, like, when was the last time this thing happened? When was the last time this thing alarmed? Right. And I think one of the things that we've benefited from with using a tool like BigPanda is an alert triggers. I mean, it's going to land in ServiceNow, but we have links right coming into ServiceNow that link right back to the incident in BigPanda, and it tells you exactly a list of all the similar incidents. Right. It's like, hey, there's this has happened a whole bunch of times. This is when it happened. Makes it really easy for our engineers to go back and say, hey, this isn't just a one-time thing here. This is a repeat incident. It's happening at all of these other times. You can go back and look and see what's happening at these other times and actually get rid of the problem itself. And, you know, it's basic ITIL, right? It's no longer an incident, it's a problem. When it's repetitive, customers don't want to see things happening over and over again, because then they start to question the value of why am I even using your service? You're not actually fixing the problem. You're just telling me about it.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, that's a theme that I hear, you know, all the time too, right? Like, you know, obviously, like every MSP is going to offer some amount of like monitoring and alerting. Like that's just table stakes. You know, what differentiates you from other, you know, companies I'm talking to, and you'll probably sense the theme here, right? But I talk about our people, right? Like what you're not going to get is the people that we recruit for, how we train them, and the, you know, expert tools that we put in their hands so that they can be more effective managing your environment, right? So that's part of kind of what the talk track, you know, when we're going to market here is, you know, we have subject matter experts that are using best in class tools that are going to deliver value on top of just like detection and notification, but really like analysis, you know, root cause analysis, you know, recommendations, being more like consultative, right? Like mentioned something we were just talking about the other day. The customer doesn't want to just know that you're closing that ticket. They want to know like what are you doing to actually manage my technology, my infrastructure, so that I can then leverage that for my business needs and what I'm trying to deliver for my customers or whatnot. So I think like that can be a really powerful message if you tie it together the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's break fix and then there's continuous improvement, and a true partner, you know, you guys are going to do your contractual obligations. It is oftentimes a break fix job, but if you guys can make, you know, recommendations and provide problem management visibility, it goes a long way. And, you know, extra touch points with your customer are always helpful. So if you have data that you can come in and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of recurring issues, we have some recommendations to make, you know, it's a relationship strengthener at the least. And then obviously making actual improvements to their environment only helps you as an MSP because it'll make it easier to manage their environment. No, that's awesome. I appreciate your guys's you know, brain power on that topic. I'll shift to the second section that we were moving to, around kind of the data reporting side of things and using data to show customer value. But I'll start with the internal. We've been talking a lot about this already, just like with the operational efficiencies. But Mike, I'm curious from your standpoint on the like internal metrics. How are you tracking success internally? You know, are there metrics that you are looking at to say, hey, you know, whether it be the success that BigPanda is bringing you or just what operational efficiency looks like, how are you tracking that and how are you instilling that within your team?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, a lot of these, key performance indicators are going to be similar across MSPs, right? But we're looking at how much time on average are we spending to resolve a ticket? You know, how long is it taking us from when that ticket came in to when it is actually resolved, right? Because it may only take you 45 minutes to solve something, but if it took, you know, several hours for it to get from one service board to another or to the right engineer who has the access and the skills, like that's a problem as well, right? So trying to drive both of those down, how much time we're spending on the ticket, how long it's taking for the ticket to get to the right person and ultimately closed. You know, trying to look at percentage of tickets that are resolved, either in that kind of first interaction, you know, first call, first contact resolution, or, you know, tickets resolved same day, just all around that theme of, you know, do we have the right person working the right ticket as quickly as possible? You know, all of the continuous improvement initiatives are all aimed at trying to like, you know, drive those numbers down. Also looking at, you know, what we call major incidents, right? Or just think like business impacting events per month. You know, kind of traditionally, you know, in the old days, you're just kind of worried about, you know, uptime, right? You know, how available are my servers? How available are my network devices? Well, these days, like first of all, there's just so much more reliance on SaaS platforms and things like that, where, you know, your devices are providing access to, you know, those cloud environments, but, you know, it's not really just the uptime, it's the performance, right? Like, you know, are my users having bad video call experiences because, you know, we don't have the right bandwidth capacity for that like site or location or things like that? And is that causing, events that's preventing them from doing business? Is that breaking a webinar that they're trying to do, right? Like those are all things that, we look at as key performance indicators from like a technology standpoint. And then from a customer standpoint, we're constantly doing customer satisfaction surveys, as part of our like ticket closure process. We do quarterly business reviews with our customers. So trying to, solicit feedback during those reviews, trying to really like, get conversations with the right people who can kind of just give us that continuous feedback loop, continuous improvement, and then ultimately trying to drive what we call a net promoter score, right? So how likely is this customer to recommend Dataprise to other companies or people in their network? So those are all things that we're constantly looking at, talking about internally as every tool or process improvement we're considering, which of these is that helping drive to ultimately deliver a better customer experience.
Awesome. No, it's super insightful, and yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and having the data in place is so important. Matt, I think when we were prepping, you had talked a little bit about some ways that you measure AI effectiveness, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we're experimenting in addition to all the metrics that Mike talked about. We're experimenting a little bit more with those sort of front end sort of input metrics. So BigPanda metrics. So BigPanda will measure our alert correlation, and that's really a function of our data hygiene and enrichment sources that contribute to putting these alerts together and doing that correlation. So we track that on a weekly basis. Just with AI, there are opportunities here to look at beyond just the traditional IT operations metrics and maybe even come up with some of your own. So another example of that, outside of BigPanda, but still AI, we built a tool to measure every single agent's comments to customers, every single one. And now we can measure objectively where they land on aligning with our standards. So the possibilities are near endless when it comes to some of these AI tools, because now you could even go use an agentic coding app to build your own way of kind of measuring things. So with AI, I think the imperative here for leaders is to think outside the box too. Everybody is measuring these lagging indicator kind of metrics, but in a lot of cases, the ship's already sailed. They're just trying to course correct from the ship's already sailed. But if you can catch it earlier, the tools give you the ability to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for those that are on here that aren't necessarily using BigPanda or haven't learned about BigPanda yet, I mean, you're hearing about some pretty specific metrics from these leaders. One thing to know is it's not uncommon for us when we have introductory conversations with other MSPs that some of this reporting is really difficult, and part of the reason that Mike and Matt have the access to some of this visibility and this data reporting is because they have built a operational strategy that contains a single source of truth. And I know I only touched on BigPanda initially at the start of the webinar, but BigPanda, what makes us unique is that we have the ability to easily integrate with every monitoring tool you're using and your ticketing platform. And there's a bi-directional aspect of those integrations. So we often create for the first time for a lot of our customers clear visibility into MTTR and noise reduction and data that didn't used to necessarily be possible. But through BigPanda's analytics engine, since we see that first alert fire and we see it all the way through to that ticket being closed, you can have some really deep metrics that can break MTTR down into multiple different layers, even time to assignment, time to detection, time to fix, all those types of things. But let's transition to we talked a little bit about kind of communicating the value and using these metrics for ROI to the customer. Jason, I think this is something in my time that Mission Cloud does really well of a lot of the MSPs I've spoken with. I'm curious your perspective on kind of how you think about that proactive communication to the customer to make sure that you're staying relevant, that they understand all the work you're doing for them, and ultimately lead to better customer retention the better you do it.
Sure. So for us, we're an AWS partner, right? Mission has been born and bred in AWS. We don't work with any other clouds at this point. So for us, a lot of it was mimicking AWS's kind of infrastructure and models to start. That was great for a little while, but customers tend to feel like that was a little impersonal as well. So what we've really focused on is how can we report to our customers on what we've actually done. So we have our technical account managers. They're meeting with customers on a regular basis, typically monthly, if not more frequently, depending on the size of the customer, right? Some of our larger customers need a little bit more, love. We're happy to give them that. But we're showing them all the work that we're doing. We're showing them, these are all the alerts we're getting. This is the general categories of what those alerts are. We can easily break all that down. This is how we've addressed those issues. Or, hey, we don't have a plan for some of these issues. Our design is very much based upon building runbooks for any alerts that come up, right? So we don't, and I think I tell this to my team, any alert that gets set up in our system should have a runbook created for it. Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? You need to have a plan in place. And we'll look at that. There's inevitably going to be things that get alerted on, that get turned on. I wish I could say we were perfect, but we're not. There's inevitably things that are going to get turned on that are going to alert, and we're going to come back to it, and we're just going to jump into troubleshooting because there is no specific plan for it. Well, that's what we're getting in front of our customers with, right? We're bringing that information back to them. We're showing them, hey, we've seen these things pop up. We don't have a specific plan for them. How do you want us to handle them in the future? And the how do you want us to handle them thing isn't necessarily going to be around, what's the very specific troubleshooting steps, but it's who gets notified. Are there things that we have authority to do so we don't have to wake you up in the middle of the night if something gets triggered? Those are things that we are definitely sharing back with customers, but we're also sharing with them information about what happens from BigPanda, right? Like, so we can say, hey, look, you generated, I'm arbitrarily picking a number right here. You generated 100 different alerts last month. We only actually had 40 of them turned into tickets because they were all consolidated, compressed, correlated, etc. Like, we saved you a whole lot of noise that didn't have to bother you. You didn't have to filter through it. You didn't have to remember what was going on from incident 1 to incident 2, right? It's all stuff that you can very visibly see. And our customers really appreciate that, right? They know they don't want to get all that noise. We don't want to get it either. So we want to make sure that there's things that we can take action on, that we can deal with right away, and we can help them. So if you don't show that value to your customers, if you don't show them what you've been doing, they're going to forget about it, right? We all work in technology. Customers don't call us to say hello. Unless you're BigPanda. But they don't. They don't call us to see how things are going. So we have to be the ones that reach out to them proactively and show them what we've been doing and reinforce it with them.
No, absolutely. It makes a ton of sense. And having, again, the faster you get in front of those conversations, the better relationship that's built. And it's all about customer retention, right? And how you guys can do anything possible to make sure that they understand the value that they're getting from you. For the sake of time, we'll move on. I really appreciate the great discussion so far. We'll go one by one for the speakers here, and kind of an opportunity to talk about, as I said, as we were laying out the agenda, kind of what did before state look like before BigPanda? What made you make the decision to go forward with any kind of AI ops tool, but then BigPanda specifically, and then kind of future state, talk about a little bit about the outcomes that you've achieved. Matt, I'll start with you on that.
Yeah, so I talked about that profitability side of things. We were drowning. We had a major issue with just that cost structure being really out of whack, and the team. And when we talk about employee sat and customer sat, just folks were miserable. They were unhappy. We had so much noise, and one of the drivers that I'll give you a little bit of a background here. we do a lot of Commvault backups. And Commvault's very, very noisy. A backup job fails, it's going to fire an alert. Well, the problem is that we had it set up so that every alert would be ticked, and that was just too much. It was way too much volume, and there was no easy way to get that correlated. We tried a bunch of different monitoring solutions. With the way Commvault works, it's not like an up-down thing, right? So we knew we had a problem with noise. We knew we had a customer sat issue. We knew we had employee sat issue. We knew we had a cost issue. So in the research, found this AI operations segment of capability, and then we started doing investigations. And one of the things we wanted to maintain was the flexibility. Mitch, I think you mentioned it earlier, right? The idea of having multiple alerting sources and multiple ITSMs as a possibility, that was paramount for us. A lot of the solutions that we found out there, they want to lock you into their ecosystem of ITSM or their ecosystem for monitoring. And that just wasn't going to work for us. So got engaged with BigPanda. The account team was fantastic. We did a proof of concept, and we saw a 79% reduction in the noise. Like, blew our minds. So we were sold before even seeing the financials. I knew that this was going to be a major game changer. Then when we got to that part and actually saw just what this would do to those cost drivers, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that exact analogy to the math equation, right? Like, certain amount of people to take a certain amount of tickets. A lot of MSPs are scaling. You cut the noise down by 80%, it really changes the game, and it changes the math equation significantly. No, that's awesome. Mike, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, so a very similar story as for Matt. I'm sure we're all going to have a similar story, but for us, it was just like noise. Like, especially as we were growing as an organization and getting more and more devices under management, we were just generating a ton of alert tickets. Even the process to generate those alert tickets, kind of like what you were talking about. First of all, we were only doing email alerting. And so we would have like a dev team on our side would have to write, kind of custom code to be able to take in, these emails and the structure that they're coming in and being able to map fields to fields in our ticketing system. So, because of all of that, development overhead, we really only tried to stick to, the monitoring tools or RMM tools that we were, standardized on, right? Well, over time, as more and more kind of cloud platforms come out, your Meraki's of the world, Azure Monitor, AWS, sellers want to be able to tell, their customers, hey, whatever your tech stack is, we're going to be able to ingest those alerts and be able to, support you. And on the ops side, we were like, whoa, like that, don't tell them that. Like that is going to be, crazy hard for us to keep up with and constantly be building out and whatnot. So that's kind of like where we came from. And then and kudos to the BigPanda marketing team, right? Like they found us, right? Like this was definitely a problem, and we had looked a couple different times in the space just to see like what solutions were out there, but there wasn't really anything that seemed like a good fit for MSPs. And like Matt was saying, like that doesn't try to lock you into their stack. And so when BigPanda approached us and we did kind of, a proof of concept demo, it was just immediately clear. Like, first of all, just how quick it was to be able to go from zero to, have a monitoring integration source fully set up. And we weren't even using integration sources that you guys were like had out of the box, right? Which to me was even more of an indicator that this was a great solution for us. The platform is really flexible, and they do offer a number of out of the box, incoming integrations and outgoing integrations. And if there isn't one out of the box, it's very easy to, set up one from scratch. So between the noise reduction that we saw, the incident timeline view, I thought was a game changer for us because, previously, like the example I was giving before, you have 10 different alert tickets because it's email based. They all come in at slightly different times because of, just email and spam scanning and all of that, right? So, it takes a lot of manual effort to figure out like what was even the first thing that occurred here. What is the likely root cause? That instant timeline view, I feel like was a real game changer for us to really understand, okay, like what was the initial source here that triggered all of the ripple effects that we saw across the environment. So like I was very perfectly honest, I was skeptical going in, right? Like I'm always kind of skeptical of vaporware, like things that sound too good to be true. So I'm a very like hands-on person. And, as soon as we got into the platform and saw what it could do, again, between that, the alert normalization, the analytics engine, it just gave us, a better ability to manage the alerts that were coming in. And when, an infrastructure management department, like you got to be really good at that, right? So it was, it was a very easy decision for us.
I think my story echoes everything you guys have already said, but I'll give you kind of a picture of what we had in place. We use ServiceNow for ticketing. New Relic is our primary infrastructure monitoring tool, and New Relic is incredibly powerful, has lots of different options within it, including application performance monitoring. Now, what we have to be careful of here is that Mission isn't infrastructure experts. We're not application experts, right? But our customers will often ask us, can we leverage the APM functionality of that tool? Sure, no problem. But we're going to direct the alerts directly to them. What's super cool with this right now, and what's happened for us, and that one of the challenges we had was we were sending all of our alerts from New Relic straight into ServiceNow. And it was all much like what you just said before, Mike. It was like an email-based integration. So something would come in, it would generate an alert or a ticket in our system. And then, if that condition updated, we'd get another email that would have to then get associated with it. It was a royal pain in the rear end. Right. It was a lot of manual labor, a lot of effort that went into it. And we weren't getting everything easily. Like it was very dependent upon us having a very standard way of having New Relic configured. So the alerts would come in at the right priority and they would get parsed properly. We had a custom integration that somebody had to maintain and build that was probably 6-7 years old. And it was just ancient. And every time we upgraded ServiceNow, it was like, hold on here, because we don't know what's going to happen. This may or may not work anymore. So it was getting really challenging, and it wasn't really realistic to continue supporting that anymore. Enter BigPanda. We've been live for a little over a year now. We now have this intermediary service that we can just direct all of our alerts to via an API as opposed to via email, right? So we can still do it via email, but API integration is a heck of a lot easier. If an incident or alert condition changes in New Relic, it updates the incident in BigPanda, which then automatically updates the ticket inside of ServiceNow. Makes it really easy for our engineers to go and see it. So that was super cool. It eliminated that homegrown integration that we had built and took a whole lot of time off away, that we didn't have to deal with anymore with our platform team, right? They were like, cool, we got 20, 30 hours of time back a month now that we don't have to deal with worrying about this or have to manage it. So that was awesome. But what was super cool, and I'm going to go back to kind of the beginning of this thing. I had mentioned that we only deal with infrastructure alerts, and our customers will typically get the APM alerts. We can still send the APM alerts into BigPanda, and while they don't create cases for us in ServiceNow, they will get added as additional information. So let's say we see a server that triggers a CPU alarm and a disk alarm, right? Those would normally come to us. But maybe at the same time, something is also happening on the application performance monitor. Maybe there's some queue that's long within their application. We're not going to take action on that, but we can see that information now in one place, and we can actually have that correlate to the alerts. When we go back to the customer, we're like, hey, these two things triggered at the same time. Oh, and by the way, your APM thing is firing off as well, and they all may be related, and we can give a much more holistic view of what's going on with an issue back to our customer. And that's been huge. It's like, wow, we actually seem like we know what we're talking about sometimes, which is pretty awesome. We do know what we're talking about, but application performance monitoring stuff, it's not really our cup of tea. We have the tooling that we can let them use, but to be able to give that back to a customer and show them more information and make it seem more holistic has been a huge win for us.
Yeah, I have a math-oriented brain, so that equation I've been talking about is how I've always thought about it, and it probably is the basis of the value MSPs get from BigPanda. But some of the ancillary benefits that I've heard throughout time, like the amount of engineering hours that were spent keeping integrations up, like things that I never would have thought of. And again, maybe my my brain's a little limited there because one of the coolest things about BigPanda is you start a POC and we show you how integrating a monitoring tool takes like 30 to 40 seconds. And to think about trying to maintain this integration for years on end and spending 30 to 40 hours a month doing that, it didn't really compute with me. But it's an interesting and consistent story I hear. It's just like the amount of development required just on the operational tools goes down. Obviously, the main focus is the alerts and providing better visibility to your customers. But yeah, there's just some things that I didn't even expect. Where 40 engineering hours a month's a lot. That adds up pretty fast. That's awesome. Thank you guys all for your input there. And I mean, that wraps up the topics that we had planned to discuss. There were a few questions that came through the chat that I'll ask, and then I'll wrap us up finally. But from one question came in around letting your clients have visibility into BigPanda, and then how do you manage a client that comes in with their own tech stack but they don't use BigPanda? I was curious if any of you guys had thoughts there.
Yeah, I can take that one to start. So it's not something that we're offering to customers today, but was part of the calculus in going with the platform, like wanting to have that flexibility. So in the future, if we did want to offer them, direct access, or, I like what Jason was just talking about too. Hey, like we focus on the infrastructure, but if you want to kind of leverage this tool, and especially like the analytics reporting, right? Like we'll ingest things that we don't necessarily support, but we can forward them to your team, have them go to a Teams channel, a paging service, but you get the benefit of, the correlation and getting the full picture of the story. Like Jason, I got to imagine that's probably really cool to be able to understand what the downstream impacts are of things like disk space alerts, or maybe like resource utilization alerts, but also be able to tell the customer when you reach out, like, oh, hey, by the way, your accounting system may be impacted by this, or or what have you. Like, I feel like that's probably just gives more value to the customer and feels like even though you're not supporting that application, they're getting value from the service that you're providing.
Yeah. I can speak to the managing client with their own tech stack that doesn't use BigPanda. What we are working on currently, I mentioned the retooling of our offerings where we put BigPanda kind of in the middle of everything, very AI centric. What we're doing now concurrently, building out really frankly BigPanda as a service where we're managing that and the integrations. So that's in the works. I've got a lot of customers in the pipeline for that. They seem very, very interested. And then I'll go ahead and say we're leveraging BigPanda with a resident solution architect as well from their professional services team to help us kind of build that service out. So we're not running that alone. And I feel really good about that aspect, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I can chime in on this as well. So we don't give our customers access to it. We have too many customers and too much customer information flowing through it. However, it has really enabled us, right? So as a traditional managed service provider, you build your service around repeatability and consistency, right? You want the same tools in place across the board. You want alerts to look the same no matter what customer they come from. You want them all to look alike because that's how you can make your team more efficient. What we've found in the past couple of years is customers, we provide our tooling as part of our service offering. And as we've started to sell into larger customers, that isn't as an enticing solution to them because they may have made an investment in a tool of their own, right? So if we look at a customer that has, our primary tool right now is New Relic that we use for monitoring, but we have other tools that are integrated as well. But if a customer comes to us and says, hey, we already have made an investment in a tool like Datadog, right? How can you help us? 2 years ago, we've been like, we can't, right? Right now, we can actually take that information. We actually just launched this service that alerts can come in from Datadog. We can actually tie into the customer's Datadog monitoring tools. We may not have access to it. Like our tooling, our engineers may not have access to the monitoring tool, but we can still correlate alerts and we can normalize them. So when they actually end in our ticketing system, they all look alike. So our engineers can still look at it and be like, oh, cool, this is a disk alert. I know how to deal with this. Oh, this is a CPU or a connectivity alert or whatever it might be. It all still looks alike. So we can pull in data from a variety of different systems, and that has really enabled us to allow our customers to bring their own stuff. If they want to make that investment, cool. It costs us less money. It's fine with me. It costs us less money, and we can still make it look the same, and we can have our engineers do the same work. That sounds great.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
And we don't have to integrate anything new to ServiceNow. It's all just one tool that we hook into. So we don't need to involve our ServiceNow development team or any of that stuff, which takes forever. Not that those guys aren't good, but they're a limited team, right? There's not that many resources that we have to pull from, and there's only so many hours they have to build stuff. So our team is empowered to make those changes and build stuff right out inside of BigPanda to allow us to do that type of work.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that real quick, I mean, BigPanda has enabled us to consider things, for prospects and customers now that would have just been straight hard nose before, right? So again, just like being able to have that flexibility, if it's the right opportunity, now we have like the capability to do it. Whereas before it would be like, no, like this isn't even a conversation worth having. So, that's been, a huge win for us.
Yeah, I talked about it a little earlier, but just to provide some more color, what Jason had said around, BigPanda gets that really tight connection with the ITSM platform. And then because it takes, like I was saying earlier, call it max 10, 20 minutes to integrate a monitoring source into BigPanda, it makes it a lot easier. There's someone comes with a new tool. It's like, oh, well, I already know it's going to be easy to get into BigPanda, and I don't even have to worry about the ticketing system, which is typically the harder integration point. So it makes things a lot easier on the operational team. So to get things set up, and as a salesperson myself, I always love when the technical teams get to say yes to me more. So it's a big win for everyone. I know I'm very familiar with pushing people like you guys outside of your boundaries. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you, Matt, Jason, Mike. It was awesome to have you guys on here. You guys are just exceptional leaders in your field, and it was great to get your insights around MSP and AI ops and how these worlds are fast converging together for kind of a match made in heaven. As a follow-up to this, we will send out the recording to all the different viewers. BigPanda has a full MSP section on the website, so feel free to go check that. In the announcement section, we have our demo requests field, which will send you straight to one of our regional sales directors, and you'll be able to get a personalized demo through that. So if any of you guys are interested, feel free to go there, and we'll include that link in the follow-up, as well as my contact information, the contact information of the panelists today. So I'll wrap us up here. Thank you guys again for joining. Thank you to the panelists, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.